Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do the double manga review where I do two at once if I'm doing like a series. That way if I do like Barakamon, volume 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then I combine that with something else to kind of like keep things fresh. But this was a recommend, and I think for books I recommend, I'll try to like make them the focus of one video rather than just try to like arbitrarily double it up. So Barakamon is rated all ages, and my experience with manga is whatever the age rating is, just bump that up to the next one on the movie rating scale. So if they say it's G, it's really PG. If they say it's PG, it's really PG-13. If they say it's PG-13, it's like rated R, or it's like a not super bad rated R movie. And if they say it's for older teens, that's a rated R movie. That's been my system anyway. So the thing about a slice of life manga is it's slice of life adventure. So it doesn't give me like a real in-depth, epic plot to pick apart. But I think the reason I would recommend this is beyond just slice of life humor. Be quiet, cat. Good grief. All of the you will not shut up. I have the worst pet in comics, Twitter, and YouTube. No, he's a good cat. I love him. He's just loud and vocal. All right. Well, I have a complete thought before the cat starts me on. Yes, I have a complete thought. So my point is that the slice of life adventures in this have a nice point. They kind of give you a kind of neat, somewhat melancholy, somewhat optimistic perspective on life. And I think that's what gives these, bigger depth than just, oh, a silly thing happened at school. It's giving you kind of a perspective on just how life goes by. People live, they die, they grow up, they have these strange experiences. So the setup is that Seishu Handa is a calligrapher. Let's find him. He's sensei. Look at this. Even though they didn't give me like a whole recap, they gave me a picture of everyone in the village with kind of like a basic idea of like who's chipper, who's a bit more irritable, who's a bit more melancholy and laid back, who gets picked on by all the kids. So Seishu shows up in the village. He's like a really intense, artistic personality because as a calligrapher, he kind of sees calligraphy as like Japan's great art, and he takes it very seriously. So he's the instructor from the big city for this, like some rambunctious country kids in a Japanese island. So for him, he's having to get used to a completely new type of life where he's used to the hectic city life. He actually has to work hard to slow his pace down to the country life. And then each little story is sort of a story of his experiences in the country, learning how things work. That cat will not shut up. All right. I thought this was kind of funny just for... one of the interesting aspects about manga is that they're kind of your crash course in Japanese culture. And one of the maybe annoying things about them is if you're not used to manga, it's sort of like you're getting hit over the head with a lot of weird cultural information you're not used to, which I think the best manga artists kind of speak universally. But even if there are some things you're not used to, I think a good manga artist can kind of communicate the culture so you get it. So the reason I say this should be PG rather than G is this girl. Oh, let's look at her name. Tama. So Tama's deal is she wants to be a manga artist, but she doesn't really get it, and she's not good at accepting critique. So she asks for a really brutally honest critique, and then she kind of doesn't listen to him, and it's clear that she's kind of a little bit sheltered and obsessed with kind of trashy manga. So I thought it was kind of cute where he described, well, if you want to get published in a shonen comic, you need usual boys stuff, friendship, hard work, and success. No, people want something different. They want violence and gore and a weird bromance and a girl who shows up for one chapter. It's a really funny, self-own, I think, on creative people who sort of get lost in their own creativity and they forget to critique themselves. And then there's this whole little, cultural thing where they explain that she's a fujoshi, which I hadn't heard before. Some of this, they did a pretty good job of trying to help translate some of these puns into English for me, and they even have a whole section at the back. So a fujoshi could mean a girl who likes manga, or it could mean a pervert girl who's into X-rated yaoi manga, and so she's kind of got this pent-up thing where she has a very clean self image that she wants to project to people, but she may be a closet pervert, so she's worried that people are going to judge her as a pervert. So, and then what works about this is then from this point on, once that's established about her character, then they can do sort of like subtle gags where she gets really flustered anytime like the sensei is looking at another guy because she imagines, oh, what if it becomes a yaoi romance? But they do it in a PG way, so they're sort of hinting at like some of the risque humor of Japan, but they're doing it in a way where they don't like shove that right in your face. And I found it bemusing and kind of an interesting way of explaining like an aspect of Japanese culture. That cat, I can't put two thoughts together without that cat. All right, I want to highlight this story. I think this is the best story in the book, and it has kind of the most interesting point to it. So they arrive at this sort of Shinto region, and there's little holes where they've been pounding rocks in the holes to make herbs, right? They're like playing at being herbalists, and he wonders, well, why are these holes here? And the little girls remember that their mothers used to play on that. I even like little things like this where the kid's getting hot, so she turns her back to the sun, so it's a bit cooler. It's really, there's a lot of like observation of little normal things that normal people do, and that's brought into the manga to just give it this real feeling of life and this real feeling of just I've done things like that as a little kid in the country, kind of like just finding ways to amuse myself outdoors. So then the grandma comes by and she explains that they used to play house on that thing. So generations have been pounding holes into this little temple while playing there as kids. And then every new generation they come and play at the temple, and it's almost like they're stuck there, but it's also kind of sweet that life has just kept going on in this village. And this little 2-page gag here, I think, is the coolest thing. So they imagine in 100 years, their kids might play there, and they imagine themselves as little old ladies. And then they imagine them next to grandma because they don't have a concept of death yet, and they imagine that grandma will still be there when they're little old ladies in the future. Which is a funny gag because they're misunderstanding something, and you have to put it together just by flipping the page and interpreting the pictures. But it also beautifully ties into the theme of the story, which is that life goes on, and you play, you kind of waste time, you while away the hours, and you have these experiences. And I just think it was really sweet. It kind of spoke to me. I'm not going to rehash all the stories because I think you should just read them. You know, the calligraphy instructor's a very intense guy, and it kind of explains his passion for calligraphy. He's gradually loving more and more. See, he's kind of becoming like the village babysitter because it's such a quiet life that the kids just come by and pester him after school. Even if it's not school time, they pester him and ask him to play with them. So he ends up like babysitting the kids for no other reason than it's like Dennis the Menace. It's like the old Dennis the Menace comic strip where he'd go bug Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, and Mr. Wilson was kind of gruff, but he clearly liked Dennis, and Mrs. Wilson clearly loved having, you know, Dennis around the house to liven it up. It's got a similar energy to that. The translation notes, like, you'll just learn so much, like Japanese terminology and like the dialect of this region. This was the sweet thing, because this is what proves that this slice of life manga, it had to have an element of life in it and real life experiences, which you need for fantastical epic stories too. You need to have some like down-to-earth moments or we don't feel a connection. So everybody, thank you so much for buying Volume 2 of Barakamon. All thanks to your warm support, there was a big event where the mayor of Goto came to Yoshino Sensei's family home, unannounced, to celebrate. Yes, really. So I think this whole manga is based in the region of Goto, and so the mayor of the little town shows up, because it is kind of cool to see your village featured in a manga this way. Now then, nearly all the episodes in this volume of Barakamon were based on Yoshino Sensei's personal experiences. In fact, Act 16, Chu no Waruka, is based on when Yoshino Sensei was hospitalized right after Volume 1 was released in summer 2009. Concerned about being the likely cause of overwork, I, the editor in charge, got permission to make a get-well visit, but you would not believe what awaited me there. And then they're like go-to brand products. There are like photos of the cats that were inspiration for one of the chapters. There's a closed school that was an inspiration for the kids' school. And finally, this happened when I visited GoTo for a preliminary meeting as editor in charge. While there, I ruefully said, "I forgot my swimsuit," to which Yoshino replied, "I don't have one either." I thought, what? Then how do you swim? Naked? But while traveling by car, we found children playing on a rocky beach. Just like Naru and her friends, they were swimming fully clothed. They were all looking our way. Grin. Sorry if it's hard to tell. In any case, approximately 80% of Barakamon was based on personal experience. I sincerely hope to see all of you in Volume 3. So what's nice about this is not only is this kind of like a cultural introduction to like Japanese tropes and stereotypes, I guess, like stereotypical, closet pervy girl, stereotypical athletic, really, yeah, athletic kind of tomboyish girl, like two kids who are a little bit weird and don't know personal boundaries, right? So they just keep like bursting into your house to annoy you because they're bored. It's also like a really good introduction to a geographic region of Japan that's kind of like the equivalent of the Midwest here, where everyone is kind of like perceived as maybe a little backward, a little hard to understand, having a different dialect. It's just, I like it. It's about a young man with like real passion and a real education, kind of trying to find himself in a world that's very different than what he's used to. This is published by Square Enix, of all people. And I like the little cast. It's a pretty tiny cast, like a small village should have. You get the feel for all the characters, and then you just start having a good chuckle at it, but also with a good heart to it. 11 minutes, that's it. Let's do a video game giveaway. Ta-da-da-da. I'm giving away a digital code for Cities Skylines, as well as the After Dark downloadable content. If you'd like to enter, like, comment, subscribe, click the bell to receive notifications, and to let me know you're interested in winning this game, write the word Cities Skylines in your comment. If you like my channel and want to support my work, consider checking out my Subscribestar account, a better alternative to Patreon. Thanks to everyone who has supported this channel. With that, I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. I love you guys, and I'll catch you later.